Welcome. I'm Janine Sheffert, the Education and Engagement Manager here at Seed Savers Exchange, and I'm here with Hannah Breckbill. Hannah is a first-generation farmer with Humble Hands Harvest, a local farm here just 8 miles away from us here at Heritage Farm. Hannah is also a land access navigator for Practical Farmers of Iowa, and she's going to tell us all about what that means. So, Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for this conversation.
Yeah. So I'll start off just by asking, why is land access important when we're talking about seed saving?
Yeah. First of all, anyone who's saving seeds needs a place to grow and grow the plants they're growing and saving. And that's becoming more and more of a challenge for a lot of people in the kind of economic and agriculture environment that we live in. But like on a kind of bigger level, I think about seed and the way that each of these varieties have been stewarded by people and cared for and, tended to for, generations, even millennia. And the same is true of land. Each piece of land that is on this earth has some story to it, has some importance. Many pieces of land have importance to humans and have a lot of human care invested in them over millennia again. So yeah, the story of seed really is about indigeneity and the story of land and people on the land. And I just think it's a huge question of like, how can we, if we're talking about saving seeds, we also need to be talking about saving land and who's stewarding those seeds and how are they able to do that?
Right. Well, and it can be a barrier to saving seeds if you don't have anywhere to grow them, right? Yep. So it's a huge piece of what a lot of people are thinking about when wondering whether they can start saving seeds. Mm-hmm. So you're a land access navigator. What does that mean? Yeah,
so there's a cohort of us in the upper Midwest who are land access navigators. We work in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and we're a kind of grant-funded service. So the USDA has the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Grant, and we are funded through that to basically consult with beginning farmers who are looking for land, are looking for more secure access to land. So that might mean leasing land, and we help them kind of make secure and leases with good terms that make sense for all the parties. And then we also help navigate through the process of buying land or purchasing, and all the kind of loan options and other things that can help people find land and have a place to be. What I wish we did was actually go out and find land for people and plop them on it, but that's a little bit of a challenge. So we're basically here in the background as a coach and a support and a person to rattle ideas off of. So
nice. Mm-hmm. So you're a farmer. How did you access the land you are farming on?
Yeah, I started farming on my own as Humble Hands Harvest, a one-person show, in 2013, and I was on rented land. I was actually in southeast Minnesota at the time, and had a great opportunity there to lease a little piece of land that was on a grass-fed beef farm, so that I was able to just have one of their paddocks and grow a bunch of vegetables on it. So I'm really grateful for those landowners who gave me that opportunity to use a little chunk of land. So I started this farm, and almost immediately upon starting it, I realized, oh my gosh, but I want to plant trees. And if I'm going to plant trees, I need to know that I'm going to be here in 20 years. To know that my investment in that piece of land is going to keep paying off. So that kind of got me wondering about, okay, how am I going to be able to purchase land? Land prices seem so high. compared to what I was making as a vegetable farmer. That didn't make any sense for me to buy, especially buying kind of the size of farm that comes up for sale up here in Iowa, hundreds of acres. It just doesn't make any sense for a vegetable farmer to take that kind of thing on. Luckily and interestingly, there was a group of people in Decorah, where I had spent some time. I had worked at Seed Savers and worked on other farms here. There's a group of people here who knew about a piece of land that was about to go to auction, and they were worried about it because it was in their neighborhood, and they knew that some of the people who had been bidding on land in the neighborhood are hog confinement operators, and they really didn't want a hog confinement or the sewage from a hog confinement in their neighborhood. So what this group of people did was organized really quickly, and they were able to buy the land directly from the seller by forming an LLC, just a little business structure that enabled each person in this group to throw in some money, and then the group as a whole could buy this piece of land. So it was organized by shares, and there were about 20 people with 22 different shares of the land, and it was a 22-acre piece. That was amazing because they bought this land in this moment of like needing to protect it and needing to make sure their neighborhood would stay free of these activities they didn't want. But they didn't necessarily have a vision for what they were going to do with it. And so that's where I came in, having been thinking about this, like, how am I going to get land? And I said, hey, this piece of land, this 22-acre piece, which used to be a cornfield, just corn year after year, this could be a diversified farm. Like, we could have 2 acres of vegetables here, and then we could also plant a bunch of trees, and we could raise livestock. And a lot of people in this group were like, well, I don't want to do that. It took me some convincing for me to be like, no, this is really possible. Like, I have the capacity to like help this happen. But after a couple years, I was able to kind of buy share by share a few shares of this land and then parcel off a piece that could be in my name, so that we could start a farm there. So it was in 2017 when I finally had 8 acres that were in my name, and then I could build a well, put in electricity, put a deer fence around the vegetable field, put up a greenhouse, put up a yurt for me to live in. So all of these things happened all in one spring. It was pretty remarkable. I think about it as those 4 years where I was renting land were just me like stretching this rubber band of like really being ready to go. And then spring of 2017, we just released it. So, yeah. And so the other aspect of our farm, when I say our farm, who am I talking about? I'm talking about myself and my co-farmer, whose name is Emily. And she also joined me in 2017, that same spring. She had moved to town here the year before and had been working on a different vegetable farm. And I had this opportunity coming up, and I really was sick of farming by myself. Mm-hmm. I wanted someone to be equally invested in the operation with me and to put in their whole self, the way I was putting in my whole self. And so she was up for that and joined me that spring. So that has been the two of us for the past 5 seasons, and we are kind of on track or on the way to adding more worker owners to our farm.
And it's continued to grow in terms of infrastructure as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, so since that spring, now we have also a high tunnel, a movable high tunnel for tomato production. And we have a pole shed that holds our hay for the livestock in the winter and is our washing station in the summer. And we have dance parties in there in between. And then this past year, we built a house for all of the farmers to live in. And so that has been a big and exciting thing for us. And so this year is the first year of hot running water on the farm. It's really lovely.
So I love this story. It's this beautiful story of community getting together and making this thing possible. But it's also pretty unique. Do you feel like this is a replicable system?
Yeah, I really want to believe that it is, because all it took really was this group of neighbors who cared about a specific piece of land that was in their neighborhood. So it does take that specific piece of land, which is one kind of lucky element. And it takes a group of neighbors who had kind of the extra capacity to each throw in maybe $5,000, which is, also doesn't exist everywhere. And then it took a farmer who was willing to take that on and say, I'm really going to commit to this and do the work. So yeah, when I think about farming, I think about and land access, I think about, okay, you need the capital to be able to access the land and to be able to get all that infrastructure, and you need the workers. And I really believe and want to create a system in which the workers and the capital are the same, coming from the same source, rather than having to get capital from people who don't quite understand the work, or have these workers being kind of beholden to someone else. So that's why we're a worker-owned cooperative, headed toward that.
Yeah. So fast forward many years, what happens when you want to stop farming and retire? What happens to the land and this system?
Yeah, so that is really the cool thing about our business structure now, as a worker-owned cooperative. Our ultimate goal is that the workers, whoever is working at Humble Hands Harvest, will continue to be the owners of the farm. So I am not planning on passing a farm to my children or my heirs or whatever. I'm planning on keeping my legacy alive by training new people in as I phase out of the farm. But then the other question is about capital and how does the money transition work? And so what we've kind of created a kind of unique structure in which basically I've invested a lot of money into the farm, and I do hope to get that investment back. If I leave the farm in 30, 40 years, I want to be able to have that investment that I've put in coming back to me and helping me live, helping me have an income. And so what we've decided was that each of us, we would each keep track of the investments that we've put into the farm. And so we have that, a spreadsheet of what we've given. When any one of us leaves the farm, we will get that kind of capital account will get paid back to us, kind of at the same rate that workers are being paid salaries. So it'll convert to a loan to the cooperative at that point. The really cool thing that we did, though, was when we were first accessing the land and first building the infrastructure on the land, we had a bunch of gifts given to us in the form of both shares of that original LLC, but also of money to help us build the well. We had like $20,000 given to us that first year by a crowdfunding kind of thing. And so we wanted a way to account for that that felt kind of like it had integrity to the original purpose of it, which was to help this farm get started. So we created a separate capital account for that kind of money that we think of as gift money. And so that gift account we call the commons, and that will never have to be paid back to anyone. That just lives with the farm and will keep going as long as the cooperative still exists. If the cooperative disbands, then what we'll do when we sell the farm, we'll take that chunk of the money, we'll parcel out each person's capital account, and also the commons will still be there, and we'll be able to gift it along to some similar project or something that we believe in.
Nice. So one of the things you said you wanted to make sure to talk about today is the idea of racial dynamics and how that plays a part into your land access story and land access in general.
Yeah.
As a white person,
Yeah.
What do you want to say about that?
Right. So I am a white person, and this story comes from a very white context. Northeast Iowa is, more than 90% white, and I'm pretty sure every person involved in this story has been white. So there's some like heavy racial undertones right there, right? Like everyone's white. Like, what's the deal? So a few things that I want to acknowledge is, first of all, the land that we're talking about owning is Indigenous land. And so there's a lot of like respect that has to be kind of acknowledged or remembered to be given as we think about like what has happened to the land since it's been appropriated by white people. When we started farming on the land, there was basically no topsoil. It's a pretty slopey spot. So there, this process of colonization really not only kind of took control away from Indigenous people, but it also really harmed the land. So that's one thing to acknowledge. Another thing that's really important to me to acknowledge is that the cooperative history of the United States is very much a Black history. After the Civil War and into the Civil Rights Movement, all of those decades were full of Black people being creative about the ways that they could survive the economy that was around them, and that they were forced to live in. And so the ideas that we've had in making a worker-owned cooperative, in figuring out ways to pass on the gifts that we've been given, none of those ideas are new, and a lot of thinkers have been involved, and especially from the Black African American community. So just want to acknowledge that and encourage everyone to look up their cooperative history and really admire these people who have created so much and survived so much.
Are there things that you're doing that like connect you to any of the like land back movements or things that are like really connected to these thoughts in terms of action?
So what I think about when I hear that question is like, I so want to be more connected than I am. And I think there are ways for me to be connected more, especially like right now we have debt on our house. And so we can't just give because the bank will say, no, don't do that. But I am really curious about how to give land back, how to build relationships with the local Indigenous community and have some kind of meaningful value to them returned.
We started this conversation talking about how land access can be a barrier to people wanting to start seed saving. What would you say to people who are wanting to start seed saving for the first time, or wanting to do a little bit more of it than they can currently, in terms of finding land and gaining access to land?
Yeah, so I guess there are like a bunch of practical advice tips I can give, and there's also kind of the bigger picture thing of like, I just want you to know that we need you to be saving seeds and we need you to be doing this work. And even though our kind of economic paradigm is saying, why bother? Or like, this doesn't make sense. It's really important work. And you know that. And I just, want to like encourage that of like, this is important work. This, even though our system doesn't value it. But in terms of the kind of smaller nitty gritty, if you're in the upper Midwest, you can get connected with a land access navigator, and we'll talk you through what your situation is, and any ideas that we have we'll share. So the best way to get connected with us is to go to the website gotfarmland.org, and there's an intake form, and we will kind of be in touch with you from there. So that's one thing, and we're really happy to be able to offer that service for free to beginning farmers. The other thing that I want to just say is there are a lot of creative opportunities. Like, often it seems like people have to wait a lot longer than they want to in order for the right thing to like really gel together, which is frustrating to me and to everyone who experiences it. But kind of keeping yourself in the right place, talking about your dream with everyone who you know, can really help it help it come together, help it gel. So I really encourage people to be really open with all of their neighbors and all of their all of the people around them, about what they're looking for, what they want to do in the world that requires land and is a good thing for the world.
Yeah, that's great advice. Mm-hmm. And what would you say to people who do have access to land or are currently stewarding land that they could potentially pass on? Right.
So that question about like what our system is saying, like our economic system and the system of land ownership that we have right now tells people, okay, and so you have to pass this to your heirs and you have to like get top dollar for it and all of this stuff. And that's actually not true. Like, you can give your land to whoever you want to. And of course people need their income for retirement. They need things like that. But there's a lot of creative potential in that resource of land that so many people own, and so many people who really care about what happens in this world, like, have control of this resource. And so there's a lot of potential. So I say get in touch with young farmers, kind of the same advice of find a young seed saver to mentor and to be connected with, and to care about your land with you. Try to think of what your legacy can be to both your heirs and also to kind of the world and your community, that isn't a monetary thing. Like, what can you be passing on to whoever you want to pass your legacy to, how can you be creative? How can you be thoughtful and generous with yourself and your assets? So, yeah.
Our theme of this conference has to do with creating community through seed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to you about, the idea of land access also being a way to, in some ways, create community.
Totally.
Can you talk a little bit about what that's meant? You talked about the community it took to kind of grant you this access.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you are there,
mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit about the community that you're building with your farm.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of kind of scales of that. But one big thing that our farm does, and has been doing for the past 4 years, is we have started organizing a queer farmer convergence where we bring queer farmers from, self-identified as queer and farmer, from all over the country, and have a camp out and kind of awesome time for a weekend every fall. And that really has, to use a really cliched metaphor, has borne a lot of fruit, in terms of having fellow queer people in community with me and farming alongside me. So there have been, since we started the Queer Farmer Convergence 4 years ago, there are, at least 4 other queer farmers off the top of my head who have moved to Decorah and now live here and are farming here. So that feels really, really exciting. Like, wow, we can grow the community that we need by just reaching out and asking for it and kind of giving to it so that it comes. Yeah. And then, I should say that our farm also, we do a CSA program. So we kind of try to build a community through the food that we grow. And we connect with our CSA members, every week. And that is really rewarding and fun to be people's vegetable grower, and to be providing food for all these families. So, and then, yeah, the occasional, like during lambing season, having a bunch of families out to catch lambs and pet them. And, that's always a good time. So being able to share this abundance that we have, I feel really lucky to be able to live on where I farm, and yeah, to be able to bring people out and share that is really special.
Yeah, that's beautiful and adorable. Can I ask you one more question? I'm asking everyone I'm interviewing.
Cool.
Do you save seeds?
Yeah, we do. We've gone through phases of saving whole plantings of tomatoes or peppers, or squash. And now really all we save is our beans and our corn. But occasionally we get fancier than that. We have some parsley actually this year from a Syrian accession from that we might save some seeds from. So
Why do you save seeds?
Oh, because it feels so special to remember where I got that first seed and from whom and whatever its story was, and then to know that I'm keeping that story alive.
Nice. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next time.
Sounds good.